Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are moving on to the next episode in my category breakdown series, and in today's video we are taking a look at Best Original Screenplay. Now if you're new to the channel or new to this series, this video is going to be in a playlist with all of the other episodes in the series so far, but basically all this is just for the last 3 years. I've taken a look at every single individual category at the upcoming Academy Awards, and we break those categories down, where we talk about all 5 of the films that are nominated in each category. We talk about the individual artists that are nominated alongside the film. So for example, in this video we're going to talk about the writers of each of these films. We talk about their previous work history, previous Oscar nomination history, and then at the end I'm going to give you my personal rank of each of the films 1 through 5, how I would kind of rate a vote for them in the category, and then rank them 1 through 5 as well on my prediction for how likely it is that I think they win the Academy Award this Sunday, March 15th. So without further ado, let's take a look at the nominees.
Blue Moon, written by Robert Kaplow.
This is Robert Kaplow's first Oscar nomination. Blue Moon wasn't nominated for Best Screenplay at any major precursor. I think I've probably talked about Blue Moon 3 or 4 times maybe on the channel now at this point, and every time I talk about Blue Moon, there's 2 things that I talk about. There's the 2 things that I think are just absolutely worth highlighting in the film. The first thing is Ethan Hawke's performance, and the second thing is the screenplay. And the thing is, I don't think you can talk about either one without the other attached with it. Like, they are a package deal. The reason that this film works at all, because this film, I think, already doesn't work for a decent amount of people. The only reason it works for the people like me that it does work for is because you've got that great combo of Ethan Hawke performing this screenplay. This screenplay is one of those that, the way that the film is structured, of a film about a man sitting down and talking to people, just having these conversations, and again, most of these conversations are him just kind of running his mouth and telling whatever story he wants to tell, or changing the story, or changing the direction of the conversation, the flow, always to wherever his brain is carrying it. That's what we're talking about now. And so it's like one of those things where it's like, that could have been very boring, that could have been very repetitive, and again, maybe some people think it is, but for me, I was pretty captivated. I was pretty amazed by how just kind of riveted I was just listening to Ethan Hawke tell these stories and reference these plays and musicals and songs that I've never seen or heard, before, and just kind of the way that he is embodying this character and the way that he is, again, delivering these lines is just what kind of is captivating. And so, again, a lot of the credit does go to Ethan Hawke for the performance, but I think so much of it goes to the screenwriting and to the script of this film as well, because there's just so many lines and moments that he has in this film. He'll say something that is just so witty, or it's kind of one of those where, again, I don't know, his character, outside of this film. I've never heard of him, or at least, maybe if I've heard the name, it never stuck with me. I'm not super big into kind of, musical theater or anything like that, and so I'm just not super familiar with him. And so maybe he was as quick-witted as, and would fire off, a joke, or fire off a retort or whatever, and he would have the perfect comebacks at all times. Maybe that was the case. But here in this film, the way that he is written in the film, the way the screenplay is written, he's that type of character that, again, just always has the right thing to say, the perfect, comeback for anything, the perfect quip at all times. And so it creates a film that I think could have been very boring, instead turns it into this film that you're willing to just watch people sit around talking for an hour and 40 minutes or however long the film is, because that screenplay is just that good. For my personal rank, I'm putting Blue Moon in 3rd, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in 5th.
It Was Just an Accident, written by Jafar Panahi, script collaborators Nader Saivar, Shad Meher Rothstein, Mehdi Mahmoudian.
This is the first Oscar nomination for all 4 of Jafar Panahi, Nadir Saivar, Shadmir Rothstein, and Mehdi Mahmoudian. It Was Just an Accident was nominated for Best Screenplay at the Golden Globe Awards. Now, I will admit that I knew nothing about this film really going into it, and anything, I guess the little things I did know here and there, it wasn't anything that was pivotal or super important to really knowing this film. So I kind of went in pretty blind, and the film, at least for me, I don't know if it's for everyone, took a minute for me to get into, and I was watching it, and I'm kind of watching what's happening, and it seems like things are maybe just a little bit random, or you're watching and you're like, oh, well, why are we following this character now? Why is this happening? Who is that guy? Like, what is happening here? And so for a second, I was kind of like, oh, like, it's taken a minute to get into this, but I wasn't dismissive of that or anything. And I'm glad I wasn't dismissive, because it becomes very evident, very clear, very fast that you're supposed to. It takes a minute to get into it because you don't know the story, you don't know what's going on, and as this film goes, as they kind of move from scene to scene, from place to place, picking up and adding characters to the ensemble as we go along throughout this film, all of a sudden now it's making more sense, and now we're getting more of the story, we're getting the background, and we're getting how everyone is kind of tying into the story. And that, for me, is just great screenwriting, to be able to set up this premise that, initially maybe you think, okay, it takes a second to get into, or you think like, oh, I don't know what's going on here, but it's very deliberate. It's not just because it's a film that, is inept and didn't like tell you what's going on, right? Like, it's a film that's saying, okay, trust us, we're going to kind of take you on this story. We're going to move you from all of these scenes and through time, and in so doing, with all of these other characters coming in, and the next character comes in and they provide a little bit more information. Next one comes in and provides a little bit more information. So when you get to the end of the film, you have kind of this clear picture of what the situation was, why everyone is so upset or has certain feelings toward a certain character in the group. Like, it all kind of makes sense. And I think what's most beautiful about the screenplay is, yeah, it all kind of is building to that, but then once it reaches that point, you then get another, basically kind of maybe where the point of like the film could have ended here, but instead it's like it built to this point, you build this tension, and then you get an additional scene on top of it after you've already got all of this built up, and so now it's like you're getting this scene that I don't remember, I should have looked, maybe it's like a 10, 15-ish minute scene, maybe not quite 15 minutes, but it's a decent little runtime for one scene there, with only a couple of our characters remaining kind of at this point, at this moment of the film, and it's just this riveting confrontation between a couple characters, and I was like, my breath taken away, honestly, watching it, because it's just the way that it built to that moment, and to have this great moment really kind of essentially end the narrative, I just thought was just excellent screenwriting. And then the film also has like kind of another scene tacked on after that, which the final shot of the scene, which it's one of those that maybe I need to like look up and see like how other people interpret the scene, but I kind of had my interpretation of it, and I was like floored by kind of that final minute or so of the film. Again, it's just another thing that is a very simple thing, and if you've seen, the final scene, you know what I'm talking about. Like, maybe it doesn't play out the way that you think it's about to, or something doesn't happen, but the way that they wrote it and the way that it just kind of ends, maybe a little bit abruptly, I think was like, the way I interpreted it was like, that was very intense. It was very, like, I was, again, already kind of, just got my breath back from the previous scene, and now all of a sudden it's gone again. And it just was a great way to write and finish the film, I believe. And so this is a film that, again, for me, I'm glad that, I was able to see this, and I wish it would have got a little bit more recognition. Jafar Panahi would have made a great, director addition to that lineup. But I think that I'm just glad that, that it got the screenplay nomination, because the screenplay absolutely is one of the highlights of the film. For my personal rank, I'm putting It Was Just an Accident in 4th, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in 3rd.
Marty Supreme, written by Ronald Bronstein and Josh Safdie.
This is Ronald Bronstein's 3rd Oscar nomination. He was also nominated this year for producing and editing Marty Supreme. This is Josh Safdie's 4th Oscar nomination. He was also nominated this year for producing, directing, and editing Marty Supreme. Marty Supreme was nominated for Best Screenplay at the Writers Guild of America, the BAFTAs, the Critics' Choice Awards, and the Golden Globe Awards. And Marty Supreme is actually really interesting here, because typically, I would say almost all the time, I'm more like, usually when it comes to like a director or a writer, obviously, and this is, an example of this, so it doesn't really quite fit what I'm saying here. But, like, if a film has the same writer-director, it doesn't really matter here. But if I'm just looking at based off of, like, which I tend to prefer a little bit more a film that has a great director or a film that has like a great writer, a great screenplay. I feel like I'm just my personality. I think I kind of gravitate more to like screenplay heavy, like if the screenplay is kind of the star or the big thing. And so Marty Supreme is really interesting because it's a film that I still love. I don't necessarily love the screenplay per se. Like there's a whole lot more to the film that is kind of like the text and the crafts, and but then it's also kind of the one example where I think I maybe prefer Josh Safdie's direction over Josh Safdie's script, which, you know, again, it's kind of a moot point because it is the same person doing both, and so sometimes the lines maybe get a little bit blurred there of what was actual, like, in the screenplay, what was on the fly direction and stuff that Josh Safdie decided to do. But Marty Supreme is one of those films that, you know, one of my 4 favorite films of the year. Like, I absolutely love the film, but there's so much about it that, again, I guess it is kind of, it is the screenplay, in a sense. Like, it is the way that the film is written with all of this chaos and all of this energy, but still somehow it's one of those that, it's weird. And so this is, again, I say this in a couple of the videos, don't take my personal rankings on these always, like, too seriously, because it's like, I love the screenplay, you know, of this film, but I just don't know if it quite stacks up to me compared to, like, everything else in the category in terms of just, like, the actual screenplay. But again, just talking about that screenplay here for Marty Supreme, because of how chaotic and how, you know, wall to wall it is with its action and with its, you know, movement and just the way that the scenes take place, you know, kind of at this high-paced, you know, breakneck speed, I think is a great job. Again, obviously it's in the script, but I do think I attribute, I think, a lot more of it to kind of the direction that Josh Safdie gave. But it is still a great time. It is still essentially the highlight. Like, it is the story of this film, and that is kind of what is carrying this film. So it feels kind of weird where I'm putting this in terms of, you know, everything, but just in terms of like an actual screenplay standpoint, I don't know if the film quite stands up to the other films in the category for me. For my personal rank, I'm putting Marty Supreme in 5th, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in 4th.
Sentimental Value, written by Eskil Vogt, Joachim Trier.
This is Eskil Vogt's second Oscar nomination. He was also nominated in 2022 for writing The Worst Person in the World. This is Joachim Trier's third Oscar nomination. He was also nominated this year for directing Sentimental Value, and in 2022 for writing The Worst Person in the World. Sentimental Value was nominated for Best Screenplay at the BAFTAs, the Critics' Choice Awards, and the Golden Globe Awards. And then we immediately follow it up with a film that is, to me, essentially is kind of like, the screenplay is kind of like the star, or like one of the highlights of this film, where Marty Supreme obviously has all of these other things kind of going for it. Sentimental Value does have its actors and its director and stuff going for it, but I think a lot of that also comes from, this feels like a very screenplay heavy film for me. There are so many dialogue, lines of dialogue, so many conversations, so many moments that are had between characters, where to me it feels like it's specifically like they are just acting out this screenplay. And I think it's a beautifully written screenplay, and it's one of those that, again, you're getting great performances of it, kind of, you know, like a Blue Moon with Ethan Hawke. I think you're getting great performances of a great screenplay, and I think you're able to just see the moments in the film where it really just pops, where someone will say a line, someone will have a conversation, and it really just, the screenplay, there's a moment in there that it just pops, and I just immediately go, oh, that was a great moment in this screenplay, a great moment performed by these actors, like reading this and really kind of truly understanding the characters that are written for them in the script. There is a whole lot to love, really, for me with Sentimental Value about this screenplay. And it's also kind of fascinating when I look at this film compared to some of the others in the category, or just kind of really any film that I've seen, and I think about what type of screenplays I like. It becomes very evident and pretty clear to me that I'm a big sucker for the screenplays that are, like, one-on-one conversation focused, or I guess, you know, and like I was kind of saying with Blue Moon, maybe just kind of conversation focused, doesn't even have to be a real back and forth. Like, if it's just, you know, a conversation that's being had and someone's just kind of airing their thoughts or whatever, like, maybe the talky kind of movies or whatever can kind of be boring for some people, but for me, I just kind of get riveted in conversation and in characters expressing themselves through the screenplay. So I think that is something that part of why I really kind of lean heavily towards Sentimental Value as a screenplay that I absolutely love, especially in this film, because I've said it again a couple times when talking about this film, but it's really fascinating to me how much of this film is just like specifically one-on-one conversations. Renata Reinsve is having a one-on-one with Inga Ipsdottir Lille's character. Then she has a one-on-one scene with Stellan Skarsgård, and then maybe she has a one-on-one scene with Elle Fanning, and then Elle Fanning has one-on-one scene with Stellan Skarsgård, and it's like it's very rare that you're getting all of the characters together in one room having like an open discussion where someone says a line then it cuts to someone else. Like instead you're getting these conversations where it's one person opening up to another person, having this kind of maybe a heart to heart, like a kind of a very emotional moment, and so you have someone kind of expressing that through the words on the screenplay, expressing something, and then you have another character sitting back listening, taking it in, and then responding, and so it's just you're creating these conversations that I think make a film that is very this family drama film where it has these moments of beauty and intimacy, and I think you're bringing that through, like with the screenplay is what's really kind of bringing that to the forefront in the film. And so this is the type of screenplay I think that it's like these are the type of films for me that I just truly gravitate to. That screenplay is where it is, because I mean there's all sorts of things, so many great screenplays like can be excellent for so many other reasons, but just for me I've noticed that it's just kind of maybe my taste that I truly love these screenplays like this where it is just so focused on character development and conversations and just kind of sharing these beautiful moments between characters. For my personal rank, I'm putting Sentimental Value in first, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in second.
And Sinners, written by Ryan Coogler.
This is Ryan Coogler's 5th Oscar nomination. He was also nominated this year for producing and directing Sinners, in 2023 for Best Original Song from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and in 2021 for producing Judas and the Black Messiah. Sinners won for Best Screenplay at the Writers Guild of America, the BAFTAs, and the Critics' Choice Awards. It was also nominated at the Golden Globe Awards. And maybe my placement of Sentimental Value maybe catches you off guard a little bit because like if you knew what was coming next, you knew Sinners was coming, the film that is swept and has won every precursor, and it seems like it is the most obvious contender. But again, like I said, I think for me, the screenplay of Sentimental Value, there's something so beautiful about like all of the one-on-one conversations that I think I favor that a little bit more than a film like Sinners where yeah, sure, there are those beautiful moments, those one-on-one conversations, and we'll talk about that in a second, but a lot of the screenplay is also the action scenes, and it's, the big group conversations, and things like that, where again, like, it's hard to, like, be like, oh, I'm docking this because it's not as good as it. Like, it's so hard kind of just ranking sometimes in these categories because I truly love all of these. Like, I love Sinner screenplay pretty much as I love Sentimental Value, so maybe those are interchangeable. But I'm putting Sinners here where it is. I guess you already know. It's the last film. You know where it's going. But like, let's talk about that screenplay for a second. Like, let's talk about I think the highlight really is kind of the fact that it is this big ensemble where you've got. Oh man, I guess if I like sat down and like started counting, like I could actually kind of get there, but I want to say maybe like 12-ish characters that are like really important to the story. Honestly, it's actually probably more. You're probably pushing 15 because you've got different I'm like thinking of like everyone that they're gathering for the actual party at the juke joint, but then you've got the outsiders kind of coming in. Then you've got some characters at the beginning that are at the beginning and the end and kind of don't interact. You've got I guess, yeah, but mainly I would say kind of in that 12 to 15 ballpark of like real important characters that are in it for a long period of time, and so you have to write all of these characters very individually, and you have to write them like to where it's not going to be repetitive, that you have 7 characters that all kind of are making the same jokes, or they're all making the same comments, or they all have the same, whatever. Like, you have to kind of make sure that they're all these individual characters and they're all bringing something different and unique to the screen, and Sinners absolutely does that. And then, like I said, it does kind of the same thing with Sentimental Value, where it does have those moments of beauty where it's these nice conversations. Obviously, kind of the highlight conversation, it really is Delroy Lindo's character in the car, talking about his past and an old job that he had, and talking to Miles Caton and Michael B. Jordan's character and explaining this, and it's just this moment that kind of is, I don't want to say it doesn't come out of nowhere, but it is for a film that to this point has been kind of a lot of kind of a little bit more lighthearted, some quips, some jokes, and maybe a conversation or two that's a little heavy, but it's like for the most part it's been a little lighter, and then all of a sudden this is like kind of the first like real big heavy moment. And then there's another scene, probably only like 20-ish 20 minutes later, probably in the film, where Michael B. Jordan has a conversation with Haley Steinfeld's character, and they're kind of having this heart to heart. Like, I think that scene's beautifully written as well. There's a whole lot about this film, again, that I think is just the way that every character interacts with different characters, the way that, like, because that's the other thing too, is sometimes, you might have a film like this where you kind of have Michael B. Jordan as your lead, and maybe you have all these side characters, and it's a thing where they all exist essentially just to kind of interact with Michael B. Jordan, but that's not what they are in this film. Like, they are all these complete individual characters that all bring something unique to the film. And I think another real highlight to me of the screenplay is because of how much of this story is essentially not told off screen, but like we're jumping into the middle of these characters' lives, and we know that there is so much to, especially Smoke and Stack, but to Annie and to trying to blank on Haley Steinfeld's character's name, but to all of the every character has this history. They have baggage, or they have like these big moments that have happened to them in their life. And the film doesn't just tell you what these moments are, or like the characters or the relationships or anything. Maybe it hints on in a couple instances, but for a lot of it, it feels like their past is kind of ambiguous. Like, they don't tell you exactly, but somehow through the writing, through the way that they perform, their life going forward in the screen, in the film on the screen, you're able to just kind of like honestly like understand a whole lot of that additional context or the additional stuff, because I think that's just great writing from the film that really kind of covers like the bases and is able to say like, okay, we don't need to hold your hand and tell you all of this stuff. Like, you're going to pick up the clues or whatever in the screenplay, through the writing, through the dialogue, and you're going to get a bigger, more complete picture of who these characters are. So I think that's just absolutely beautiful. There's a lot about this screenplay that is phenomenal, and it's going to make a great winner when it wins on Sunday. For my personal rank, I'm putting Sinners in second, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in first. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of this category. What film are you rooting for? What film are you predicting to win? Let me know all of that down below. And if you'd like to like this video and then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes in this series or any of the other series that I have going on my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.